Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I suppose, depending on where you are. It's just about, it's almost 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so around lunchtime in Eastern Canada and even past that in the Atlantic. So what's new? Let's start off with a brief update of the situation. Okay, so globally, we're looking at 250,000 cases. The death count has gone over 10,000. It's at 10,500. I think it went over 10,000 yesterday. Um, Now, different countries report at different times. So not all of these will be completely up to date. China, we can see 39 new cases, 3 new deaths. Italy has not submitted their numbers yet. They have overtaken China with total deaths and the rate at which it's spreading, um, and the way the numbers are coming in Italy. I think they're probably the most accurate gauge right now. Spain, it looks pretty severe as well. Spain has gone over 1,000 deaths now, 210 new deaths just in the last day. That's an astonishing amount. I've actually lived in Spain for a while, and it's pretty sad to see this. They do have a lot of similarities with Italy in that there is a large population of older citizens, and they have a much more social country in that there's larger gatherings, more people visiting senior citizens, that sort of thing. So it's not completely surprising that in that sort of environment, these sort of things would spread quickly. Uh, Iran, Germany. Germany has a lot of cases and very few deaths. I'm not sure why that is. Um, Maybe their medical system is coping a little bit better. Maybe the testing is much more rigorous or much more widely available. The US numbers continue to move up at a fairly rapid pace. There are some other countries. The UK hasn't submitted their numbers. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the UK. They're another country that got off to kind of a slow start in dealing with things. They were pushing that herd immunity, if you may recall, and that is that's quite a gamble. That's basically, like I said, the prime minister coming out and saying some people are going to die, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. you know, Canada. Where are we with Canada? So Canada, for whatever reason, the actual numbers haven't come in yet. I believe we're up and over 900 cases now. I think the death count is still at 12. And when we look at Canada, if we drill down a little bit further, actually, this doesn't break it down by province, but 2 provinces are really driving the numbers in Canada, and that would be British Columbia and Ontario. And like I said, I mean, British Columbia, we had been receiving direct flights from China until at least March 15th, March 16th. So like this entire time, we've been getting direct flights, and I imagine China or Ontario has as well. So, we can see these are the 2 provinces where this has gotten a foothold. So basically, what I wanted to talk about is what we're looking at. So most of, or a lot of the notifications that people would have received would have been, we are canceling X for the next 2 weeks, or until, some date in April. We're going to determine after, say, spring break, for example, when things are going to start up. So it's kind of, I think we've all been given the impression that we're looking at a 2-week to a 1-month maybe window of dealing with this, right? That's not the case. That is absolutely not the case at this point, regardless of what happens with the virus. And first of all, with the virus, let me say this. When we look at those numbers that Don't worry, I don't have the virus. Just clearing my throat. So when we look at those numbers of cases and deaths throughout the world, there's a few things we have to take into consideration. And I've heard people say things like, well, Africa doesn't have it. No, Africa doesn't have tests. And so what you see over there, I mean, Africa certainly has it, and it's certainly a problem. Africa is so economically tied to China that, yeah, it's, I can say without any doubt that this virus is making its way through Africa right now. And the deaths that are happening are probably going unreported or underreported or passing off as something else. And the virus itself is not being tested. Perhaps they don't have the tests available. You know, so if you're under any kind of misconception that maybe the virus is not in places like that, then no, you're wrong. It's more a lack of testing that we're seeing. So this brings us to the main question. With this virus and these numbers, are we looking at a pyramid or are we looking at an iceberg? A pyramid being, you know, everything you see is pretty much there and we're dealing with it. An iceberg means, you know, we see 1,000 cases in Canada, but really there's 50,000 cases in Canada. And, you know, the other 49,000 people have mild symptoms, or they think they have a common cold, or they're infected but they're not yet showing symptoms. Because I mean, this has a fairly long incubation period as it is. It has an average incubation period of 5 days, but I think there's been incubation periods of up to 27 days. I think is the longest that I've heard so far. So I think the second the iceberg is really the reality. So, but aside from that, not even taking into consideration the virus itself, we have to look at when are things going to return to normal. And like I said, if you're thinking 2 weeks or a month, no, that's absolutely not going to happen. I've just heard from the Canadian government that so this week, 500,000 people have applied for some form of assistance. This is up from 27,000 the week before, which was probably up slightly from the week before that. So 500,000 people. Okay. What does that tell you? That tells you that the economy is being annihilated, right? As we speak. Air Canada has said that they are laying off 5,000 people. Do you think Air Canada is going to lay off 5,000 people and then rehire them 14 days from now? No, that's not happening. The effects will be permanent. The effects of a lot of this, some things will recover, but the effects for a lot of things will be permanent. Like whatever flights Air Canada had that might have been marginal, they're probably gone for good. When are they going to start operations up again? Man, I would think it would be at least 3 months. At least 3 months. I think for anything to be given the green light in this current climate, I think officials are going to want to see an entire month of declining infection rates. So for the question of when things will get back to normal, you're going to be waiting a long time. I would prepare for the long haul. Here's some good news, though. I'll throw you some white pills. There has to be, if we are looking at this kind of iceberg scenario in that 49,000 people may have it while only 1,000 are recorded, in a lot of ways, that's a good sign, because that means the symptoms are livable. If people haven't gone to hospitals yet, or if they've had it and it's already passed, and immunity will be building up. Immunity is probably building up, of course, as we speak, among healthcare workers, anybody else that's dealing with the public, first responders, those sorts of people. So there are some positives in that respect, but I think the real damage is going to come economically. And in my next video, I am going to lay out I'm going to lay out a strategy. A lot of what I do in business is strategic planning. So I am going to lay out a strategy on how to economically, how to deal with this and then overcome it. I'll be talking about some things like, for example, hotels, tourism. If tourism is down in hotels, why not convert hotels to makeshift hospitals for non-contagious people? For like, for example, if somebody's recovering from an appendix operation or tonsils or minor kind of stuff like that, where it's not life-threatening and it's not infectious, get them out of the hospitals. Or people with compromised immune systems that really can't be around viruses. Because how many people are in hospitals right now that are sick while people with a virus are coming in? I mean, that's ludicrous, right? So I railed the other day about. So I mean, I'll get into all these kind of changes. I think strategically, I've had some time to think about this now, so I'm going to put together some strategic plans that I think would work really well in terms of getting things back to normal. But let's leave it there for now. Practice social distancing. In other words, avoiding people, and do your shopping online if you can. Go into stores if you feel comfortable doing that. We're going to have to keep things going somehow. Adios.